By 1945, most soldiers around the world were still fighting with a rifle design their grandfathers would have recognized. A bolt you had to yank by hand between every single shot, like some kind of medieval subscription renewal. But hidden inside that same war was a weapon so far ahead of its time that soldiers today are still carrying its direct descendants into battle. This is every major WW2 rifle ranked, from the worst design ever handed to a soldier, all the way up to the one gun that quietly ended an entire era of warfare. Let's start at the bottom.
Gewehr 41, Germany. Germany set out to build a self-loading rifle and somehow ended up with something worse than the bolt action it was supposed to replace, which is genuinely impressive in the wrong direction. After encountering the Soviet SVT-40 on the Eastern Front, German commanders demanded a fast answer, but handed engineers two bizarre restrictions: no gas port drilled into the barrel and no moving parts on top of the weapon. The workaround was an awkward muzzle cone system that trapped gas at the very tip of the barrel, essentially engineering with one hand tied behind their back and then acting surprised when it didn't work well. It jammed constantly, fouled easily in field conditions, and ended up heavier than the rifle it was meant to replace. Barely 145,000 were built before the whole program was quietly, almost embarrassingly, abandoned.
Carcano Model 1891, Italy. Italy entered the war with a rifle that already felt outdated before World War I had even fully ended. Its 6.5mm round was famously underpowered, with troops complaining it could pass straight through a target without actually stopping them, which is not exactly the review you want for a weapon whose entire job is stopping people. Loading it required a precise technique with its clip system, or the whole action would jam like a printer right before an important deadline. Despite its unimpressive combat reputation, the Carcano became globally infamous decades later for one specific reason. It was the rifle used by Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas in 1963, turning an obscure, largely disrespected wartime rifle into one of the most recognized firearms on the planet for reasons that had nothing to do with actual combat performance.
Mosin-Nagant M1891, Soviet Union. Long, unglamorous, and stubborn as a mule, yet the Soviet Union produced it by the tens of millions anyway. Its design dated back to 1891. Its bolt action was notoriously stiff enough to build genuine forearm strength, and its rimmed cartridge was a headache for feeding reliably. None of that mattered much in practice, because factories could stamp them out endlessly, and even a barely trained conscript could keep one functioning in brutal cold and filth that would ruin more delicate rifles. Total Mosin family production ran past 37 million units, and fitted with a simple scope, it became the legendary rifle of Soviet snipers picking off targets across the ruins of Stalingrad, proving that sometimes ugly and reliable beats elegant and finicky. By the way, if you're enjoying this countdown, go ahead and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and we've still got several more rifles to climb through before we reach the one that actually changed history.
M1903, Springfield, USA. By World War II, the Springfield was already an old master, outclassed as a frontline rifle, but still genuinely deadly in skilled hands, kind of like a retired boxer who could still knock you out if you underestimated him. It was an American take on the classic Mauser bolt-action design, known for pinpoint accuracy that traced back to World War I. Early in the Pacific War, many Marines still carried it simply because there weren't enough newer rifles available yet. Its real second life came through its sniper variant. Stripped of iron sights and fitted with optics, it stayed in frontline service long after regular infantry had moved on to faster weapons.
Carabiner 98K, Germany. Widely considered the finest mass-produced bolt-action rifle of the war, and also a perfect symbol of exactly why German infantry was about to be outgunned. Built on classic Mauser engineering, it fired a powerful cartridge with excellent accuracy, and roughly 14 million were produced, arming German soldiers from the beaches of France to the outskirts of Moscow. But here's the trap the entire design sat inside. A soldier working a bolt by hand could fire maybe 15 aimed shots per minute, while an American across the field with a semi-automatic rifle could keep firing without ever lowering the weapon from his shoulder, basically bringing a manual typewriter to a texting competition.
The KA-98K wasn't beaten by a better bolt gun, it was beaten by the death of the entire bolt-action concept. Lee Enfield No. 4 Mk1, United Kingdom. If a soldier absolutely had to fight a war with a bolt-action rifle, this was the one worth having. The Lee Enfield had a genuinely smooth, short-throw bolt, combined with a 10-round magazine, double what most contemporary rifles carried. A well-trained British soldier could fire so quickly that enemy troops sometimes swore they were being hit by machine gun fire, a drill soldiers nicknamed the Mad Minute, sometimes over 20 or 30 aimed shots in just 60 seconds, which is frankly a faster fire rate than most people can order coffee. It fought everywhere the British Army went, from Normandy's hedgerows to the jungles of Burma, proving a bolt-action rifle pushed to its absolute limit could still be genuinely terrifying, even as the future was clearly moving beyond it.
Tokarev SVT-40, Soviet Union. This is the rifle that scared German engineers into directly copying it, which is about as strong a compliment as a weapon can get from the enemy. The SVT-40 was a gas-operated semi-automatic, no bolt to manually cycle, fed from a 10-round magazine, letting a Red Army soldier answer with sustained fire instead of one careful shot at a time. Around 1.6 million were produced, though it had a genuine temperament, requiring careful cleaning and maintenance that rushed conscripts in cold, muddy conditions couldn't always provide, which is part of why many troops quietly went back to the simpler, more forgiving Mosin. Germans who encountered it in combat literally studied captured examples to understand its gas system, directly influencing their next rifle design.
FG-42, Germany. A rifle so advanced that Allied engineers dissected captured examples after the war and lifted its ideas directly into their own future designs, essentially the wartime equivalent of taking someone else's homework and calling it inspiration. It was born from disaster after German paratroopers jumped into Crete in 1941 carrying only pistols and grenades, forced to sprint under fire toward canisters holding their actual rifles, a plan that sounds like it was written by someone who had never actually tested it. In response, engineers demanded the impossible, a full-power rifle light enough to jump with, capable of firing single accurate shots or controlled automatic bursts like a light machine gun. Brilliant, expensive, and rare, with only around 7,000 ever built. Too costly to change the war, but its design genuinely lived on in post-war weapons for decades afterward.
M1 Garand, USA. The rifle that gave American infantrymen a genuine advantage their enemies simply didn't have. While German and Japanese soldiers worked a bolt between every single shot, an American GI carrying the Garand could fire 8 times as fast as his thumb could move, fed by a clip that ejected with a distinctive metallic ping when empty, a sound that reportedly gave away a soldier's empty rifle to nearby enemies almost as often as it satisfied the soldier holding it. It was the first semi-automatic rifle issued as standard equipment to an entire national army, fundamentally changing what one soldier could accomplish in a firefight. More than 5 million were produced, and General George Patton reportedly called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. And for once, a general wasn't exaggerating for morale purposes.
Sturmgewehr 44, Germany. This isn't just the best rifle of World War II, it's arguably the most important firearm of the entire century. German engineers essentially built it by accident, chasing an unconventional idea. What if soldiers didn't actually need a massive long-range cartridge at all, since most infantry firefights happened at a few hundred yards rather than a mile away? They shrank the cartridge down to something powerful enough for real combat range, but controllable enough to fire on full automatic without the weapon climbing wildly off target. And just for good measure, they had to develop the whole project in secret because Hitler reportedly hated the idea at first, which might be the most German plot twist possible. Only around 425,000 were ever built, far too few and far too late to change the war's outcome. But when engineers around the world studied it after the war ended, they all saw the exact same thing, the blueprint for the future. Its core concept directly influenced the Soviet AK-47, the American M16, and essentially every modern military rifle carried by soldiers anywhere on the planet today.